still remember that winter morning when I was 11 years old. My mom called me into the living room and placed a stack of overdue bills into my hands. "You're smart, Isabella. Help me figure out which ones we need to pay now and which ones can wait." At the time, I just thought she trusted me. I didn't realize that from that moment on, I had unofficially become the Shaw family's chief financial officer. We lived in the suburbs of Spokane, Washington. My parents, Greg and Natalie Shaw, were the kind of people who acted like money would just fall from the sky when needed. My dad frequently quit jobs halfway through because of conflicts with management. My mom believed in feng shui and get-rich-quick seminars. Both had this deep conviction that everything would work itself out if I just tried hard enough. By sixth grade, I had already started reading bank statements. While my classmates were saving allowance for movie tickets or new sneakers, I stashed away crumpled bills in a velvet-lined metal box under my bed. My emergency fund. "Don't worry, honey, I'm just borrowing it. I'll pay it back soon." That was the first time she took everything I'd saved to fix my dad's truck. I cried when I found the box empty. But instead of getting angry, I blamed myself for not hiding it better. At 14, I stopped keeping cash. I opened a teen savings account at a bank near school just to keep my parents from borrowing so easily. But they found another way. "Hey, Isabella," Dad said one night while I was working on math homework at the dining table. "Can you sign this? It's just to co-sign a small loan to fix the roof. Nothing serious." Signed. Not because I understood what I was signing, but because I was afraid of his stare. That look that made me feel selfish for saying no. The roof, it never got fixed, but a new big-screen TV showed up in the living room the very next week. Our family had a favorite saying, "Family helps family." But in our house, that help always flowed one way. Out of me, into them. At 16, I worked weekends at a small cafe, saving up for a college campus tour. I remember it clearly. The night before the deposit was due, Dad stepped into my room, his voice quieter than usual. "Isabella, I just got some bad news. They're about to cut off the power. We're 3 months behind. Can you help me out? Just this once, promise?" I gave him everything. $1,600. And a week later, I saw Mom's Facebook post. The whole family at a spa, celebrating their anniversary. I stayed silent for years. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I had nowhere to put that scream. The disappointment froze into a hard, quiet wall. I kept my grades up, got a full-ride scholarship, and left Spokane the moment I could. I swore I'd never let them touch a single cent of what I'd built. But my family never gave up on their reliable investment named Isabella Shaw. What I didn't expect was that the next time they came for me, it wouldn't just be money they took. It would be the very first real chance I had at building a life of my own. I moved to Portland when I turned 21, carrying a frayed suitcase, an old laptop, and a final semester grant just enough to cover 3 months of rent. From someone who'd spent her life being borrowed from, I reminded myself daily. To escape the shadow, I had to move faster than it. I studied financial data analysis at the University of Oregon, juggling night shifts at the library and bussing tables at a breakfast diner every weekend. My classmates wore hoodies with school logos, sipping lattes from campus coffee shops, while I sat behind the library, eating homemade sandwiches and flipping through black and white printouts from a teaching assistant. In my second year, I landed a summer internship at Aldridge & Sloan, a small but respected investment consulting firm specializing in real estate market risk. No one there cared where I came from. They only looked at the charts I built and the logic in my assessments. I didn't need to be the dutiful daughter anymore, just someone who got the numbers right. 4 years later, I was hired full-time. A year after that, I became the youngest senior financial advisor on the team. I learned how to dress professionally, speak efficiently, and walk into conference rooms with the calm confidence of someone who'd once survived off cup noodles and silence. My direct supervisor, Mr. Richard O'Connor, had this habit of peering over his reading glasses before saying anything meaningful. "Isabella," he said during our quarterly review, "you caught an overlooked insurance reserve cost that our partners missed for 3 years. That alone saved them over $2 million in losses." He slid an ivory envelope across the desk. "Your bonus, $13,200, he smiled. "You've earned it." It took me a few seconds to register the number. 13,200. It wasn't just money. It was validation. It was every sleepless night in the library, every holiday I spent alone in a rental room, every meal I stretched to make rent. That bonus was a key to a door I never thought I'd be allowed to knock on. It didn't celebrate. I printed my account summary, highlighted what I still owed, and opened an Excel file titled Future Home. Last line updated, eligible for condo down payment. 3 months earlier, I had visited a small unit in the suburbs of Hillsborough. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a balcony facing the park. I toured it with a realtor, stood in the granite-topped kitchen, and imagined brewing coffee there each morning. Back then, it was just a hopeful image. Now it was real. That night, I scheduled a meeting with my financial advisor, sent an email to check the condo's availability, and scrolled through Pinterest saving furniture ideas. The feeling wasn't pride. It was freedom. No more renting. No more hiding money in boxes. No one would go through my purse. No more surprise paperwork for the family. I was folding clothes to prep for work the next morning when my phone lit up. The screen read, "Mom." I hesitated. Then a text popped in. "Sweetheart, we're having a small family dinner this Saturday to celebrate your promotion. Just us. Don't worry, we just want to see you." A minute passed. Then another. I stared at the phrase, "just us." So gently written, like none of the past had ever happened. Like my childhood hadn't been pieced together from borrowed dollars. I didn't respond right away. I pulled up my list of banking transactions. The bonus money was still sitting untouched in the private account I'd opened last year, after a therapy session with Dr. Franklin, when I told him about the nightmares. Nightmares where my mother figured out my old account's password. I locked my phone. A part of me wanted to believe maybe they really were proud of me. Maybe my mom had changed. Maybe it was just a simple family dinner. Maybe. But people like me don't live off maybes. I set the phone down and turned back to my desk. My laptop screen still showed the blueprint of the apartment I dreamed about. A tiny dining nook, soft golden lighting, a white orchid on the kitchen counter. I sat there quietly, hand resting on the mouse, eyes fixed on the detail. The half-pulled linen curtain, sunlight streaming in just enough to tell me this was a place where I wouldn't have to lock anything ever again. What I didn't know was that dinner invitation was only the beginning of another blow. But I wasn't easy to knock down anymore. Not this time. What I hadn't anticipated was just how fast news traveled in the Shaw family. Within 2 days of that quarterly meeting and my company bonus, my voicemail was flooded with congratulations from names I hadn't seen in years. Aunt Beverly, Cousin Jaden, even Uncle Max. The one who'd borrowed my car and returned it scratched up without an apology. They all had the same tone, excited, loud, shallow. "Heard from your mom you got, what, over 10 grand? That's amazing. Every parent should be lucky enough to have a daughter like you." Not one of them asked what I had done to earn it. Not one cared what I planned to use the money for. Those calls sounded like early invoices. The following evening, my mother called. She got to the point. "Are you busy Saturday night? I'd love to have you over for a small dinner. Your father will be there, and your sister. Just family." I held the silence for a beat. "To celebrate your success," she added, syrup sweet. "It's been too long since we all sat down together." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Sure, I can make that work." After hanging up, I exhaled slowly. That phrase again, just family. It sounded harmless, but I knew better. I'd learned that whenever I was called home, there was always something behind the curtain of kindness. But I'd told myself, I was grown now. Maybe things really were different. I drove back to my parents' house that Saturday afternoon, wearing a soft, brown knit coat over a clean dress, carrying a bottle of red wine I'd carefully picked out from a boutique shop. The house on Oregon View Street looked exactly like the day I left. Unevenly trimmed lawn, those same beige lace curtains. But something felt off. Cars lined both sides of the street. I recognized a few license plates from old classmates. And several I didn't know at all. A handwritten sign was taped to the front door. Please enter through side gate. Event in backyard. I walked slowly down the side path, fingers tightening around my bag strap. The music reached me before the lights did. As I turned the corner, the sight hit me like a slap. The backyard was glowing, string lights dangling between two oak trees, long tables covered in white cloth, scented candles arranged in heart shapes, even a catering station with servers in black and white uniforms. A gold and ivory banner stretched across the yard. Congratulations on the new family. Beneath it, in smaller font, Ava and Cole's first dream home. I froze. Ava, my younger sister by 6 years, had married Cole 8 months ago. I hadn't heard a word about a housewarming party, and certainly not one that looked like a boutique wedding reception. This was clearly not a just family dinner like Mom claimed. An older woman brushed past me and smiled politely. I scanned the yard. At least 50 people were there. Laughter, clinking glasses, camera flashes going off constantly. And then, I heard a familiar voice. Isabella's here. My mother, in a deep purple dress, holding a cocktail glass, came rushing over to hug me. Her perfume was sharp and suffocating. You're late. Everyone's been asking for you. Come, take a photo with the family. I pulled back from her embrace. What? Is this, Mom? I thought this was just dinner. She giggled, her eyes darting away. Well, it started that way. But then Ava brought up her dream of having a home, and we thought, why not turn it into a celebration? Don't be so dramatic. I turned around. Ava was standing next to Cole, wearing a creamy white dress, cradling her baby bump, so she was pregnant. She waved at me, her smile bright. Look around, Ava beamed. Isn't it amazing? Mom said you were the one who made it possible. She said you covered most of the costs. You're seriously an angel. I stood frozen. A man I didn't know approached me, asked if I was the one who sponsored most of the party. A woman thanked me for the incredible housewarming gift. I pulled out my phone and opened my bank app. My balance was significantly lower than expected. Way lower. I scanned the recent activity. 4 withdrawals in a row. 500, 1,200, 2,900, totaling nearly 13,000. The account name? Joint Savings. Isabella and Natalie Shaw. That old joint account? From college, the one I'd forgotten still existed. The one Mom insisted on creating to make transfers easier. I took a deep breath. My eyes locked with hers. And this time, she didn't look away. Her gaze was cautious, calculating. She walked over, grabbed my hand like she could stop me from walking out. Family helps each other, sweetheart. That money was for Ava. You're young. You'll make it back easily. I swallowed hard. They hadn't needed permission, just one mistake, leaving an old door unlocked. The camera clicked behind me. The glittering banner hung above my head. While everyone toasted, I stood in the middle of the celebration, like a gift put on display. Never asked, just unwrapped. I clenched the strap of my purse and stepped back. One word rang in my head like an alarm bell. Enough. I slipped out of the party, weaving past guests, laughing near the buffet, walking quickly toward the kitchen door to avoid my mother's gaze. My throat was dry as paper. Each step echoed heavy on the stone-tiled cement. I didn't cry. What I felt wasn't sadness. It was something more bitter, a hollowness wrapped in numbness. The back door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and stepped inside the kitchen. The once familiar room was now filled with trays of pastries, crystal cocktail glasses, and a whiteboard that read, "Gift Contributions, sponsored by Isabella Shaw," with a tiny logo of 2 wedding rings intertwined. I walked up slowly, reading line by line. Festival lights, $1,200. Seafood buffet, $2,500. Professional photography, $1,800. Projector plus memory video plus $950. Banner printing plus invitations, $620. Party favors, thanks for coming, $1,300. Grand total, $8,370. And that was just the part they disclosed. I turned away and caught my faint reflection in the stainless steel oven door. I was still here, in the kitchen where I used to cook breakfast every morning while Mom slept, while my little sister lounged on the couch. I saw a child who had once tried to hold everyone together by giving in, by sacrificing. The back door swung open. "Isabella, come out! People are asking for you!" Mom's voice rang out, gentle but laced with urgency. I didn't respond. A moment later, Ava walked in. She wore a white dress, her softly curled hair falling to her shoulders, her round baby bump visible under the silk fabric. "Are you okay?" she asked, breathless like she had rushed across the yard to find me. I turned to her. "Mom told you I was the one who paid for everything?" Ava nodded, a little hesitantly. I thought you knew." "Mom said it was supposed to be a surprise, that you didn't want any attention, but really wanted to give us something special." She smiled weakly. "It really touched me that you were so generous." I looked at her, searching for anger, but there was none. Ava didn't know. She was no different from me at 18, believing sweet words from Mom without ever questioning them. "I didn't know anything," I said, keeping my voice even. "Mom withdrew the money from an old account I forgot to close." Ava's face went pale. "You're kidding, right?" "No. Nearly $13,000. Enough for my apartment down payment." I gave a hollow laugh. "Not anymore, though." My sister clasped her hands together, her eyes darting like she was searching for someone to blame. "Mom didn't think you'd notice. I mean, it's not like you're strapped for cash, and this party, she said it would bring everyone closer." I paused a moment, then asked, "Closer by turning me into the silent sponsor?" The question hung in the air. Ava said nothing. She turned her head and quietly walked out of the room. The door clicked shut behind her. Soft, but firm. I stood still, then turned back to the cost board. Just below it, written in black marker, was a new note. Plan support. Ava's nursery renovation. Interior design consult. Furniture purchase. Proposed budget, $7,000. I laughed. Laughed so hard it hurt. So this wasn't the end. I had become a funding source for an entire long-term plan, and all of it done in the name of family. I hurried toward the front door. One thought echoed in my mind: get out before I softened again. But just as I opened it, my father appeared, glass of wine in hand, smile stretching ear to ear. "There's my girl. Everyone's talking about your generosity. You've really made the family proud." I said nothing. He wrapped his arm around me, pulling me back toward the party. "You know, your mother was thinking we could ask you to help set up a savings account for the baby. Naming her after you is one thing, but imagine a college fund in the name of Isabella? Now that's meaningful, isn't it?" I stood up straight, stepping out of his arm. "No," he frowned. "No what? No fund? No more money?" I looked him in the eye. "I'm not letting anyone else manage my finances but me." People around us began to notice. Voices dipped lower. A few turned to stare. Ava, standing in the middle of the yard, her eyes wide. "Mom, From behind the dessert table, her face stretching, as if realizing something had just slipped past the point of no return. I slipped off my heels and held them in my hand. The party can go on without me. I'm leaving. The money's already gone. But my trust? There's nothing left to lose. I turned and walked straight out the gate like the house behind me had never had my name on it. But I had never felt my name more clearly. I left that party like a fugitive. As the wooden gate slammed shut behind me, laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music still echoed in the distance. I sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to calm down before putting the key in the ignition. A stinging sensation rose from my gut to my temples. My phone vibrated non-stop in my purse. A message from my mom. Don't be mad. I just thought you'd be proud to help Ava and her family. A minute later, one from my dad. You shouldn't have stormed out like that. You embarrassed the whole family. I powered off the phone, then started the engine. On the way back to Portland, I pulled into a gas station and sat in the car for 20 minutes, reopening my entire bank statement. I reviewed each transaction. 14 withdrawals in total, ranging from $300 to over $2,000, all from the joint savings account under my name and my mother's, the account I thought had been closed long ago. I opened my old email and found the account agreement from college. Under authorized users, her name still appeared, Natalie Shaw. The account had been kept for emergencies after she fainted in public 2 years ago. Then, I forgot it even existed. I didn't. I took screenshots of everything, noted the date and time of every withdrawal, the payees, from the banner print shop to the event company. A few transfers went directly to Ava's account, labeled Baby Room Fund. I clenched my jaw when I saw that line. Not only had money been taken without my knowledge, but I had been recruited as a sponsor for plans I was never even asked about. The next afternoon, I went to the bank branch on Morrison Street. The associate, Camille, looked to be in her 30s, thin, patient, and attentive as I explained the situation. We can open a fraud investigation if there's proof the transactions weren't authorized, she said carefully. But since your mother is an authorized user, we'll need additional verification. I nodded. I want to file a formal complaint. I never gave permission for this. She sighed and retrieved the complaint forms. She helped me fill out each field, copied the full transaction history, and temporarily froze the account for review. While the claim is under investigation, we may issue a provisional reimbursement if the case is strong, she added. But it requires legal department clearance. I thanked her and left. That night, I printed all the evidence into a physical file. Photos from the party, the banner, the expense board, even social media posts from guests. Many had thanked me by name. Some tagged me in posts like, Isabella is amazing for doing all this for Ava. Wish I had a sister like that. I read every word. Not a single one asked if I had agreed. Each comment felt like a needle to my palm. Even if I wanted to stay silent, what was stolen wasn't just money. It was my agency, my dignity, the trust attached to my name. 3 days later, I received an email from Camille. A provisional reimbursement of $12,800 had been issued to my new account. At the same time, the bank recommended that I remove my mother's access to prevent future risks. I did it immediately. That same evening, I got a message from Ava. Sis, Mom is freaking out. She said you froze the money and now we can't pay the remaining event balance. I didn't think things were this serious. Are you suing her? I didn't respond right away, but I typed one sentence. I'm protecting what I built. No one gets to take it without asking. The next morning, Mom video called me. I barely recognized the woman on the screen. Hair neatly brushed, makeup perfect, voice oddly soft and controlled. Isabella, can we talk like adults? I sat up straight. I'm listening. You know I'd never do anything to hurt you. I just thought since you're successful, Helping your sister a little wouldn't be a big deal. Helping means doing it willingly, not having your account drained. She went silent for a moment. So what do you want? I spoke slowly, clearly. I want you to admit this was wrong. I want you to stop promising anything related to my money to anyone else, and I want the $12,800 paid back, even if it's in installments. Her eyes turned cold, her voice sharper. You're setting conditions on your own mother? I'm setting boundaries. I looked straight at the camera. I'm not a child you can manipulate with the phrase, for the family, anymore. I ended the call before she could say another word. That night, I organized every screenshot, transaction log, and printed image into a file folder titled Reclaiming Control. On the first page, I wrote, by hand, in black ink, I don't owe anyone my silence anymore. That morning, I woke before sunrise. The apartment was still quiet, the sky outside a damp gray after Portland's overnight rain. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up a spreadsheet titled Damage Control. Column A listed each suspicious transaction, date, amount, vendor name. Column B held the banking app screenshots. Column C was filled with notes and images I'd gathered from the party. The decorative banner, the wine glasses printed with Ava's name. Every detail became a brick in the wall I was building, not to protect anyone, but to keep out those who had crossed my boundaries one too many times. I spent exactly 1 hour doing 3 things: freezing the old account, opening a new one at a different bank, and revoking every access my mother had been granted since college. The relief I felt typing that final confirmation surprised me. What I had just cut off wasn't just account access, it was a silent permission I had unknowingly given for over a decade. I called the unauthorized transaction complaint hotline. The woman on the line, her name was Sherry, had a calm, professional voice that made me feel like I wasn't facing this alone. We'll need a detailed statement, proof of withdrawals, and your reasoning for believing these transactions were made without your consent. I emailed all the compiled documents immediately. 10 minutes later, Sherry replied, We've received your case file. Due to the large amount and indications of abuse of account access, we'll issue a temporary reimbursement of $12,800 while we investigate. I stared at that sentence. No fanfare, no fireworks. But to me, it felt like the first breath after months of suffocating under the label of the good daughter. With the banking issue in motion, I turned to another front. All the financial ties my mother had once gained through me, an emergency use credit card she'd used during her health scare, an auto transfer account I had set up to support Ava's wedding last year and forgot to cancel, and a shared investment portfolio my dad had persuaded me into for the family's retirement planning. I spent the rest of the morning combing through every connection, canceling them one by one, changing passwords, and setting up 2-factor authentication. Finally, the message on my screen read, No external accounts currently linked. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling for a while, eyes closed. Not from exhaustion, but from the surreal peace of standing at the threshold of something I'd never had before, full control. That afternoon, I drafted a short email addressed to my mother, father, and Ava. The subject line read, Personal Financial Update. The message was brief. Effective immediately, all accounts, access permissions, and financial obligations linked to me have been either closed or secured. The $12,800 in question has been flagged as unauthorized withdrawal and is currently under formal investigation. Any future expenses made without written consent will not be considered valid. I hope everyone respects this decision. Isabella. Send. No apologies, no explanations. Within 10 minutes, the flood began. Mom, what are you doing? You've humiliated me in front of the entire family. Dad, this attitude is unacceptable. After everything we've sacrificed for you? Lena, I don't understand what's happening. Mom's crying. Everyone says you're being cruel. I read each one but didn't reply. Instead, I called Julian, my friend from law school, now working at a firm that specialized in personal asset protection. Julian didn't ask many questions. He knew people like me. Raised in families where sacrifice came wrapped in the language of love and guilt. First, Julian said, you'll need to send a legal notice stating they are no longer authorized to use your name or personal information for any purpose. It doesn't have to be hostile, just firm. And next, sever any shared financial ties that can be exploited. If needed, we can file a cease and desist through an attorney. If things escalate, we may even proceed with a light identity misuse complaint for financial transactions. I jotted everything down, my stomach twisting. Not from hatred, but from regret. Regret that I had let it all go this far before realizing I'd need legal measures to pull my hand away from what they called family care. That night, I came home late. Rain tapped lightly on the windshield as I parked the car. In my hand was a new file folder labeled Reclaiming Autonomy, Phase 1. I placed it inside the wooden drawer's safe and turned the key, then poured a glass of wine, sat out on the balcony, and watched as streetlights flickered through the rain. No one could give back the years they siphoned from me. But control, what once felt permanently out of reach, was slowly, inch by inch, returning to its rightful owner. Just before midnight, I emailed Julian one line. I want to use my co-ownership of my parents' house to apply legal pressure. Help me draft the partition request. The next morning, he called. Isabella, are you sure? This is a heavy move. They won't take it lightly. I'm not asking for a light reaction, I replied. I'm asking for a clear one. Julian drafted the documents promptly. Beneath my name in bold font were the words Partition Action Co-Ownership Dispute Notification. Filing for partition didn't mean forcing a sale, yet, but it sent the message loud and clear. I would no longer serve as their silent financier. 2 days later, the legal notice reached them. The next morning, my mother texted, "You're playing with fire." My father emailed, "Let's talk in person. 3 p.m., Friday. Brickhouse Cafe." I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table by the window. Sunlight spilled across the walnut wood surface and the cappuccino in front of me slowly cooled. I laid out 3 sets of documents. Unauthorized withdrawal records, a proposed repayment agreement, and a draft outlining future financial boundaries. At exactly 3, my parents walked in. My mother wore a pressed white blouse and makeup so heavy it nearly erased every wrinkle. My father kept his sunglasses on, walking briskly but avoiding eye contact. They sat down as if preparing to face a corporate attorney, not their daughter. I spoke first. "Thank you for coming. Today, I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for resolution." My mother scoffed. "Resolution? By threatening to sell our own home?" "I'm not threatening. I'm warning." I slid the first folder to the center of the table. Here are all the transactions from our joint account. 14 in total, amounting to $12,800. Not one was authorized by me. Dad glanced at the transaction list, his face tightening. "We're family. Didn't you once say if someone needed help they could just use it?" I said that when I was in high school. Not while I'm trying to put a down payment on a house, and Mom drains my account to throw a party with my name on the banner. No one said anything for 5 seconds. I continued. "Here's my proposed resolution. I'm not suing, and I'm not demanding immediate repayment. But I need the following. 1. Acknowledgement that withdrawing money without permission was wrong. 2. A signed repayment plan. $350 a month for 3 years. 3. No one uses my name or personal information for any transaction without written consent. 4. We all attend 6 family therapy sessions, led by a third party." Mom let out a sharp, high-pitched laugh that seemed to slice the air. "Therapy? You want to air our dirty laundry in front of strangers?" "I want to fix what's been rotting at the root." I met her gaze. "If you won't talk it out, Don't blame me for turning to the law. Dad clenched his fist. You've made it. You've got money. Why count every dollar against the people who raised you? Because those dollars are mine. My voice didn't need to rise. Each word landed with weight. And because for all those years you used the idea of raising me to lock me into a role I never chose. The tension thickened. Mom leaned back, arms crossed. What if we don't sign? I laid a photocopy of the property partition notice in front of them. If not, the process will proceed. The court will treat this as a property dispute. I have the right to force a sale. But I chose to talk first. Dad sat silently for a while. Then he spoke, voice lower. This has gone too far. It only got this far because it was never taken seriously before, I said. Mom picked up the agreement and skimmed through, her lips pressed tight. When she got to the therapy clause, she smirked, but didn't object. At the final page, she looked up. $350 a month for 3 years? Or I can demand the full amount up front. I looked at her without blinking. Your choice. No one said another word. 2 minutes later, the sound of pen on paper broke the silence. Dad signed first, then handed it to Mom. She hesitated, but signed too. Her hand trembled slightly. I folded the documents, placed them into envelopes, and gave each of them a copy. The first therapy session is next week. I've sent the address and appointment time by email. As they left the cafe, I didn't feel victorious. It was simply that a door had closed, secured by locks, latches, and legal grounds. I looked out the window. The sunlight had faded, casting soft evening tones over the street. In that quiet, I didn't feel like I had to shrink myself, no longer ruled by the vague obligations they called family love. Because today, I didn't show up as the dutiful daughter. I came as the rightful owner of my own life. That first month, the $350 repayment appeared right on time in the newly opened account. No message, no apology call, just a clean, clear, silent transaction. I looked at the bank alert on my screen, then closed my laptop, poured a glass of cold water, and leaned against the balcony door, watching the gray Portland sky. The feeling in my chest wasn't quite relief, not triumph either. It felt more like justice. 6 weeks after the Brick House meeting, Mom, Dad, and I attended our third therapy session. The first 2 were tense as wires. Mom barely spoke. Dad kept bringing up how hard things were back in the day. But in the third session, when the therapist, Mrs. Karen Holmes, asked, "When was the last time either of you asked Isabella what she wanted?" the room fell into real silence. No one answered. I didn't wait for one anymore. I began focusing more on work and personal therapy. Dr. Sarah Mansfield, the specialist I saw every Tuesday, helped me peel back the reflexes, the guilt over saying no, the tendency to shoulder everything instead of setting limits. "Isabella," she said during one session, "you were taught that love equals endurance. But in reality, love doesn't ask anyone to be someone else's backdrop." I wrote that in my journal and taped it to the inside of my fridge door. By late spring, I placed a down payment on a 2-bedroom apartment on the west side of the city. Quiet area, small park behind it, 10 minutes drive from work. Not fancy, but clean, solid, and fully mine. No joint accounts, no shared keys. I set a private gate code. No one else has it but me. Olivia came to visit in June. She stepped over the threshold, holding her newborn, baby June, set the diaper bag beside the shoe rack, and smiled softly. "I brought the cold brew recipe you once taught me." I took the cup from her hands, feeling the warmth between our palms. A quiet moment, needing no explanation. "Hey." Olivia sat on the sofa, baby June curled in her arms. That day, at the party, I honestly didn't know. I didn't realize you were being cornered because I always thought you were strong, that you could handle everything. I looked at her. No blame, no rush to forgive. Just because someone handles things alone doesn't mean they don't need to be seen, I replied. Olivia nodded. June stirred, cooing softly, one tiny hand clutching the edge of her mom's shirt. We never brought it up again. But Olivia started calling more often, not to ask for anything, but to ask what I thought of her new candle shop idea. For the first time in years, our sisterhood wasn't built on guilt or debt. I wrote a short post on a finance forum for women. No names, no family details. I simply shared how my bonus had once been drained for a surprise party and how I took back control. To my surprise, the post went viral. My inbox filled with messages from strangers, bank tellers, teachers, nurses, sharing how they had become living wallets for people they loved. One said her mom secretly used her name to open a credit card. Another shared how her sister rented an apartment under her name and abandoned the debt. Each story was a mirror, reflecting the same pattern I once lived in. I realized, it's not the money that haunts people. It's the betrayal and the shame of wanting it back for fear of being labeled ungrateful. By late summer, I spoke at an internal company seminar titled Personal Finance and Boundaries in Relationships. I used my real name and stood before 60 coworkers, sharing my journey from a child who worried about the power bill to a woman who dared to set terms with her own parents. After the talk, a middle-aged man, our head of risk analysis, came up to me, eyes misty. My daughter's in college too. You made me realize I've been unknowingly putting financial pressure on her. Thank you for saying what many of us have kept hidden our whole lives. I nodded. I didn't need to say much. Each month, the $350 transfer still landed on time. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't email. I kept the documents, the transaction logs, the signed agreement. Not to reopen wounds, but to remind myself that boundaries can be built if you stand firm. I don't expect a perfect family, but I'm rebuilding myself, brick by brick, borrowing nothing, needing no one's permission. As a child, I thought family love came without conditions. Now I know even family needs limits, so it doesn't become a chain. Isabella's story is a powerful reminder that boundaries don't destroy love, they make it sustainable. Once seen as the family bank, she had the courage to reclaim her finances, confronting manipulation with both legal tools and clarity. She didn't seek retaliate or escape. She acted, rebuilt herself, and became a voice of inspiration. In real life, freedom begins when we dare to say, "This is my boundary." What do you think about Isabella's decision? Was she too firm, or just doing what was needed to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next moving family story and life lesson.